Well, hi everybody. This is Dave Crawford, and this is my write-up in video form of my signature assignment for TED 682 Instructional Technology. I had the privilege of performing a faculty development presentation this last week with my colleague Connie Choi at our school site, which is Heritage Christian School in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles. And for this presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the actual presentation that we used for our colleagues, and I've converted it into a PowerPoint. I did it via a smart notebook, smart board file, which works really great on the large board in the room, doesn't translate as well to computers. So I've taken the exact same content and transferred that over. And I'm going to walk through that with you, as well as address the feedback that we received, discuss the usefulness of the presentation for the teachers, how they could apply the particular tool that we chose for meeting the needs of diverse learners, and then give some concluding thoughts as well as how teachers could use this to achieve various learning outcomes with their students. So I hope that this is helpful. The title of our faculty development presentation was Screencasting: How to Almost Clone Yourself. As I said, I did this development presentation with my colleague Connie Choi this last week on the 18th, I believe. So I'm going to begin this summarization of our presentation by sort of walking through the presentation that we actually delivered to our colleagues. In terms of the need for screencasting, we as teachers, particularly in our current school with some transition that we're going through, we all share a common problem. And that common problem is time and overwork. All of us teach 6 sections of classes, and we all have upwards of 200 students. And the reality is that in light of that, it is extremely difficult to make consistent, meaningful differentiation for the students in our classes that we know needed, because it is simply so hard to clear time and instructional space in order to address those issues. And we presented as one part of the solution screencasting. Screencasting is the ability to time shift some of your instruction, whether it be the initial instruction of a topic, remediation, enrichment, whatever it may be, to time shift that out of the very limited classroom meeting time so that the class can be broken down into smaller groups as the teacher sees fit, and some of the individual needs of these students that really need additional help from the teacher can actually be met. And just as a way of personal testimony, I shared that it has truly changed my quality of life as a teacher in several ways. It has increased student accountability. It is a fantastic solution that I found for absenteeism, which we will address later in this presentation. It is a fantastic solution for remediation when students come to a class not having basic skills that they need that frankly aren't supposed to be retaught. In the current class. What do I do with an Algebra 2 student that still cannot add or subtract fractions of any complexity whatsoever? There simply isn't instructional time that can be taken out for that. You can address the needs of those students after school. What if they play sports? What if they have other demands in their time? Screencasting creates the ability to create remediation instruction and activities for these students to do outside of class time. It's also a solution for enrichment for many of the same reasons that I just addressed. Now, we gave a definition of screencasting. I think it's important to start there. Our definition was using a software program to capture everything that happens on your computer screen, including audio and speech, and making this content available online for students to access. We did some color-coded highlights here. By computer screen, we are referring to anything, whether your large smartboard is your computer screen, your laptop, your desktop, etc. Perhaps even an iPad using special software that we didn't cover in this presentation. I distinguish between audio and speech. Audio meaning everything that comes out of your computer's speakers can be a part of your screencast, and speech meaning every word that you actually say as an instructor. In order to pique teachers' interest, Connie and I, played for them a brief, quick example that I gave in my class last week when I had to teach with laryngitis, and I didn't think I could do it, so I was able to record a lesson once early in the morning and then play it for all of my classes during the day. And I'll show a few seconds of that example now.
My choice there is 3x to the third. 3x to the third times x will give me 3x to the fourth. I have to multiply 3x to the third times both of these guys out front, just like the previous problem. 3x to the third times x is 3x to the fourth. 3x to the third times 2 is 6x to the third, so plus 6x to the third.
And I won't continue with that. I did play an additional minute or so during our development presentation just to give teachers an idea of the versatility that comes along with something like this. The goal of our presentation was to give a basic, emphasis on basic, overview of creating and uploading a screencast, both with and without the use of a smartboard. So basically, the instructional delivery came in two parts. First, we would focus on the creating a screencast while being dependent on the smartboard and the software that comes with it, and then we walked through it again in such a way that a teacher could do it using only a laptop or desktop computer. Our goal also was to both solicit and suggest various creative uses of this general technology in the classroom to meet the needs of diverse learners. We did bring to the table some ideas as to how this could be used, but because the tool is so general, we found it much more useful to solicit ideas from our attendees as to the uses, and they didn't disappoint us at all with their suggestions, and we'll get to those later in this summary as well. A couple of preliminary requirements that we took everyone through. Number one, a YouTube account. Had a volunteer come to the board and click on this to open up a website, Google Chrome. And the idea was that all of our teachers on our campus already have a school email that is based in Gmail. So I asked someone to log in with their credentials, and I'll, for the purpose of this, log in with mine. And from this point, our volunteer was asked to go up here and click More, and see that the first option here is YouTube. And it was actually quite a revelation to some of those in attendance that if you have a Gmail account, which we all do through our school, you also already have a YouTube account. Here is a YouTube account. Here's your username, which I have customized, and teachers can customize as well. And here's the all-important upload button. So we took them through these steps. Now, the second preliminary requirement is to have a microphone. We briefly discussed hardware microphone requirements, built-in laptop microphones versus a USB microphone, things of that nature. Screencasting with a smartboard and smartboard software. About half of our teachers on our campus have smartboards, and so about half of them have access to this tool in their classroom every day. So it was certainly worthwhile to present beginning with the smartboard and smartboard software as the platform from which the screencast would be created. The steps we took them through were as follows. Number one, you have to activate a Smart Notebook screen recorder, which I will demonstrate momentarily. We went over a couple basic settings that needed to be dialed in correctly. They needed to go to menu settings and make sure that their video format was saved to Windows Media. Simply record and save your screencast, and then upload that screencast very easily to YouTube. Now, it was at this point in our presentation that we took our first volunteer to come up to the board and get a little bit of hands-on time with this. And we didn't have a set of laptops available for everybody to be working on this at the same time, so we had to use volunteers. So we took our first volunteer to come up to the digital board to do a little activity. Now, this is a sort of a vocabulary category classification activity. And everyone in every discipline has to do this. Uh, whether it could be in English where you're distinguishing between transitive and intransitive verbs, or whether it's digital photography and you're distinguishing between lossy versus lossless photo compression formats and things like that. But because we had teachers from various different disciplines in the classroom, including math and social studies and like I said, digital photography, had a Spanish teacher, we didn't want to tie it to one particular discipline. So we came up with kind of a silly activity. And the activity that they came to the board to accomplish looked like this. And it had characteristics, kind of silly ones here, of one of our colleagues. And they needed to drag the characteristics to the just say yes or the just say no circle in order to identify this person's preferences. And so this was just kind of a silly sort of activity. Now, in order to do this, they had to come up to the board and, just as they were instructed before, start the screen recorder. So they started the screen recorder. They hit menu to check their options to make sure that the default video format of Windows Media, which has the most efficient compression, at least on the PC side, was set. And once they felt comfortable, they were ready to go. They hit record, minimized it full screen, and then began the activity with suggestions from people looking on. So some of the answers would be incorrect and they get spit back out. Some of them would work, just like that. Oh, just say yes to just say no to coffee, really. Well, anyway, so they finished this activity, and so this was a little bit of fun. And then we discussed how we could more seriously apply this in different teachers' specific disciplines, and they actually suggested some of the examples that I just mentioned. Now, upon finishing the video, they maximized the screen recorder and hit stop, and selected a file on the desktop here, and let's call it sample. And bear in mind, the volunteer was doing all of this to demonstrate that they had acquired some level of competency with what it is that we're communicating. And during the time that this was exporting, we discussed how many teachers in the room had smart boards, and there was over half of them did. How many teachers in the room had access to the smart board software, and again, over half of them did. And so the majority of them seemed that relying on the smartboard software with the built-in smartboard recorder would be a good option for them. Okay, once the video finished not downloading, but rendering and exporting and saving itself as a file, the volunteer clicked OK. And then they went back to the YouTube channel that we had looked at, and again, we used my YouTube channel as an example, but any of the teachers' YouTube channels would work. They clicked upload. They selected the file to upload. They browsed on the desktop to the correct file here. There it is, sample. And it uploaded in just, as you can see, just a quick minute or so. We talked about how long it would take to export and save and upload an actual full-length class video at this point. And it would take about 10 minutes to render and about 10 minutes to upload. So that's about 20 minutes of additional work if you're going to deal with a full class-length lecture. And it looks like the video is successfully uploaded. At that point, our willing volunteers sat down and we kind of closed the loop on the first part of the presentation, which was creating and uploading a screencast being dependent on the smartboard and the built-in smartboard software. We then moved on to the second portion of the presentation, which focuses on creating a screencast in front of any computer. We called it screencasting with a laptop because of the convenience of having a built-in webcam and microphone, but we stressed that it would work with any computer, provided you had the prerequisite hardware of a microphone. Now, in order to accomplish this, we presented the website screencastomatic.com. And before actually taking them to the website via a volunteer, actually, which I'll explain in a moment, we discussed a few details about the site. You can simply begin recording screencasts with a free account. You don't even need to log in. There are some small limitations. We discussed that you could only take 15 minutes worth of screencast at a time. But unless your intent is to do class-length screencasts, that shouldn't be a problem. If your intent is to simply use them for recording some either remedial material or material for gifted students to sort of stimulate activities and thinking that they can work on outside of class and things like that, the 15-minute limit shouldn't pose much of a problem. There are settings regarding the Screencast-O-Matic recorder. They're very, very easy, but leaving them the default is fine, and selecting full screen recording mode is probably the easiest. If you have a paid account, which is fairly inexpensive, it's $15 a year, the editing tools are actually fantastic, and they're on the advanced side of simple, meaning they're not as advanced as a full-fledged, typically expensive video editing program, but they are significantly above and beyond anything else I've encountered, at least at this sort of level of expertise. And Screencast-O-Matic also contains very easy built-in YouTube uploading, which doesn't even require going to your YouTube site. Once you've authenticated your YouTube account with Screencast-O-Matic, the upload is inherent in the player itself. And so with that, we called up our second willing volunteer to the digital board, which again we were not treating as a digital board at this point. We told people in the audience to pretend that they were looking at a giant laptop screen, because at no point what was about to happen in any way depended on the smartboard. But we brought another volunteer up to the screen, and we got started with Screencast-O-Matic. Now I'm going to walk through the steps that we had our second volunteer walk through on the screen. I didn't stop them every 2 seconds to take screenshots. That would have been highly annoying for them. I just let them go through the process. But I'm going to recreate the process right now so that you can see what it is that they did. First thing, they came up to the board and clicked on screencastomatic.com. Now, they had not seen this site before, but we wanted to do it this way to emphasize how easy the use of the tool is. And the first thing that they encounter is a website open, and we pointed out that once you're on the screencastomatic.com website, that it automatically offers to start recording even before you've logged in. You don't even have to have an account. A free account, basically, on Screencast-O-Matic is no account at all. You can just simply start recording on the site. So you click the Start Recording button, and you see the outline of the recording area in black and white dotted line around the outside here. And then down here in the corner, which I believe I have an arrow to in this next screen, you can see the editing controls that come up. And our volunteer took a look at them and clicked on the microphone control as well as the screen size control. They seem to be pretty self-explanatory. And then they went ahead and click on record. When they clicked on record, they got this 3, 2, 1, go countdown. Once the screen says go, absolutely anything that occurs that's recorded on your computer screen is captured. The controls do remain down here in the bottom of the screen should you want to restart your recording, or if you're done, you can click the done button. Now, I'll get to what we had our volunteer record during their brief screencast in a second, but at the conclusion of their brief screencast, Screencast-O-Matic offers as one of their default options with a free account the ability to publish to YouTube. Clicking on that provides the opportunity to verify your YouTube credentials. Once you've done this once, it will never ask you for it again. Our volunteer did that, except I entered in my credentials for them instead of theirs. Clicking on the Upload to YouTube button kicks in the YouTube upload. It takes just a brief few seconds, and it immediately provides the link, which, if clicked on, takes directly to the video itself on the YouTube page. And so we had our second volunteer walk through these steps. Now I want to address what it was that we had on the screen during the time that our volunteer was walking through these steps. Well, for our second volunteer who recorded a very brief screencast with Screencast-O-Matic, we had them record a narrated PowerPoint. This technology is capable of utilizing so much more than that, but that is probably the lowest barrier to entry point for jumping into this technology, is to take existing material, perhaps a PowerPoint, and to record a narration of it for students to view outside of class. On this particular computer, I do not have the actual PowerPoint file that we use during our live presentation, as that's on the school server. But I'll click to open one now just to demonstrate. This happens to be a presentation on similar triangles. We had our volunteer click through on a few slides and just basically say a few words, whatever came to mind, into the mic. And when they were done, they clicked Done on the Screencast-O-Matic file, and they had basically made their first very brief screencast by narrating a PowerPoint file. And this sort of closed the loop on the second portion of the presentation, which was how to go from start to finish to create a simple screencast independent of a smartboard software, simply using Screencast-O-Matic on any old computer. Now, we moved on to this to discuss some specific use cases, to have a discussion, and to get some very, very valuable feedback from our attendees. We had them fill out some paperwork for us in which we asked them several questions. The first of which was, how difficult was it to learn how to use this tool? We gave them several options to choose from: extremely difficult, very difficult, moderately difficult, slightly, or not difficult at all. And here were the results. We were very pleased to see no one select moderately or more difficult, 2 slightlys, and 4 not difficults at all responses. Of course, the proof is ultimately doing it out on your own, but we were happy with the effectiveness of the presentation in that it at least allowed people to feel confident to attempt to try this on their own, at least especially those who weren't able to come up to the board and volunteer. We also asked the following question: if the availability of resources, such as a smartboard or a laptop, was not an issue, how likely is it that you would use this tool in your classroom? Please explain your answer. Definitely, most likely, maybe, unlikely, or never. And here were the results. We had a couple of maybes. The reasonings for that were interesting. There was one who said they didn't think they could find the time to really incorporate it into the flow of what they do, at least not this semester. They would need to take some time over the summer to kind of really work it into their routine. No one said most likely. 4 attendees said definitely, absolutely. They could think of several ways right away that they would begin to use it. And we'll see what some of those ways are later in this presentation. Was the presentation useful to teachers? Did it cover the use of a tool that was useful to them? Well, I think the best way is just to show you some of the feedback that we were given from them. Number 1, you went through it step by step. A student, meaning a teacher volunteer, a student from the perspective of the presentation, tried it in front of the class, so it was modeled and then it tried. It was simple and it clearly presented. The presentation was very effective because those of us in attendance will be able to utilize this teaching strategy immediately. And then down here, I would definitely use it. I often find myself solving one problem in class after class. This would allow me to explain while walking around, and then the last line is cut off there, but it says to give students that need it extra attention. So this seemed to strike teachers as something that could be, in various contexts, immediately useful to them. And we were happy that their feedback confirmed how we ourselves feel about this tool. Let's talk about diverse students. ELL students. There were several things that we suggested, as well as some of the feedback that came from the attendees regarding ELL students. Now, it should be mentioned that technically at a private school, we do not actually have students that are classified as ELL. We do have many, many foreign exchange students from China and other countries, particularly the Chinese students. Many of them speak absolutely no English whatsoever. Their comprehension is extremely limited, and their speaking facility, at least when they arrive to begin school here, is almost zero. They are typically very intelligent and very proficient in mathematics and other types of technical disciplines, but in terms of their exposure to English, it's often nil. Now, here's some of the feedback that we received regarding these students. Let's see, there it is. Further explanations / examples for those who need more time, practice, personal help at their own pace, etc. You see the feedback from the attendee there recommending the idea of using a screencast of material for those who need more time. And I think the concept of more time is critical, because it's students that require the ability to go through the work with their translation tool to figure out certain vocabulary words, even very basic ones. The idea of having material in a screencast form that they can view outside of class presents the opportunity for them to do that. Videos of normal class content allow students to review material at a slower pace in order to assist in scaling the language barrier, and flipping a lesson entirely even increases this. So with students that struggle, they can view the content outside of class, whether it's remedial content or whether it's the presentation of some new material. They can review it at their own pace, and then when they come into class, they can receive the individual one-on-one assistance from the teacher that they need, because the teacher's time has been freed up. Now let's talk about students that would be in the gifted or performing above grade level category. Couple of interesting items here feedback-wise that we incorporated into our discussion. It would help AP students, we do have many AP classes at our school, it would help AP kids have a collection of lessons to assess or review as needed, however much is needed as they prepare for the exam. This particularly came from our calculus teacher, our AP calculus teacher. With the vast amount of material in a class like that, students encounter areas that they need to review on their own constantly, and having a catalog of screencasts from a teacher enables them to go back and do that without taking away class time for that type of thing. The second comment here says, I would like students to create lessons about data being taught or learned. I think that I would probably hesitate to assign the creation of a screencast to a student unless we're dealing with a student who is exceptionally able and talented, maybe even in the gifted category. This allows them an opportunity to present some of the things that they are thinking through, the things that they are working on, in a way that allows them to showcase their work. We thought it was a fantastic opportunity to really challenge gifted students in this way. We both suggested this, and then this came back via the audience feedback as well. Finally, with regard to diverse students, let's discuss students with some special needs that we need to be meeting here. Students with special needs can follow a pre-recorded tutorial so that I, the teacher, can more effectively circulate the room and troubleshoot instead of being at the laptop editing and teaching. This specifically came from a computer science / digital photography / website creation general computer class teacher. Some of the steps are very technical and very specific and require many steps to accomplish something. A pre-recorded tutorial can be playing, and this teacher said she could walk the room and specifically, while this is going on, check in with various students to see that they're able to catch up, to quietly sort of direct them and redirect them and answer questions as the rest of the class is moving on at a more normal pace. And I thought that was an ingenious idea to do basically, wandering the room strategically to help students while a video of a technical concept is going on. Another teacher said, I would definitely use this. I often find myself solving one problem in class after class. This would allow me to explain while walking around to help others that need extra attention. So the same concept here, this one coming from a math teacher, the ability to have an explanation going on in front of the class, but to be away from the board while it's going on in order to give some individualized attention and redirection to students that seem to need it more intensely. Now, the most common use case that we encounter via the feedback, absent students. Teachers have more frequent absences now than I think ever before. With the vast amount of athletics, extracurricular activities, students playing multiple sports. When you have 40 students in a room, and as I did earlier in the week, and 12 of them are absent on the same day due to a sporting event, you have a significant problem. And all teachers in attendance at our presentation confirmed that. This allows teachers to give students responsibility for that learning that they missed, so that they can come in and ask the teacher anything they want for extra help to get caught up with that after they have first initially watched the initial presentation of the material, which has been recorded and uploaded in a screencast. Additional help may still be needed, but it takes the burden of responsibility off of the teacher and places it onto the student to give them responsibility for their own learning. And it does it in such a way that it enables them, if they're diligent, to not fall behind at all, even if they're consistently, let's say, missing a 6-period math class because they're on the soccer team. Every single teacher, without us really bringing this up, thought that this was the most immediately obvious beneficial use for this particular tool. Screencasting's main learning outcome. Well, for this assignment, part of the rubric is we need to identify this. This is tough because creating a screencast is so general. It is basically the ability to time shift any content that you would otherwise normally produce, whether it's the initial instruction, whether it's remediation, whether it's enrichment type instruction, whether it's an activity, anything. And so any normal learning outcome can be assisted, can be augmented by incorporating a screencast into it. But in order to press for some specificity, if we had to identify one main learning outcome that teachers could seek to achieve in their students by incorporating screencasting into their teaching, that would be competency in grade level content. You have a large number of students that require additional help. You have gifted students. How do you clear some of the main class time? How do you clear some space so that you can address each student individually where that they are at to make sure that they are meeting and even exceeding their grade level competency? The way that you can do that is by shifting some of that content out of the classroom so that you can clear space in the classroom to address this goal. And we feel that screencasting is probably the single most powerful tool in the teacher's toolbox to enable them to do that. Just to state it even more explicitly, clearing instructional space by time shifting direct instruction so that the teacher can individualize instruction to meet the needs of diverse learners. That is the main way that screencasting allows teachers to meet the overarching goal of competency and grade level content for all students. The tool of screencasting cannot, in our opinion, be used to directly measure the learning outcome, grade level competency as is just stated, but rather it better equips teachers to measure this outcome through standard means, formative and summative assessments, projects, etc. And it better equips students to meet this outcome through self-regulation and management of their own learning, and I would add to that sentence, an increased sense of responsibility. So I hope that this overview has been helpful. I would encourage you, if you've not incorporated this into your own classroom, that you would do so right away. You can start small and build up from there, but the important part is that you just get started. I think the barrier to entry is low, and it's something that everyone can do.